We have a consistent problem with leaders over the last several decades missing the mark about what it takes to drive the economy forward. So they keep thinking back as though, well, we'll just return it to the good old days, and that means we're just going to do things a certain way, like the way they were before, except they're missing something. They're missing that part of the reason that prices were cheap and part of the reason that taxes were few was that there was a huge economic machine that was put in place that basically built the country at an extreme mega level. So you constantly have leaders talking about, well, we'll just take care of this, this, and this, and everything will just automatically take care of itself. And it really doesn't work that way. Even when you have our newest leadership, Biden, he brings out a program of saying, well, let's repair the roads and the bridges and the infrastructure of our cities. And this is actually money going directly to the city. 70% of this money is going to do the repairs that, by the way, we already knew were going to need to be done. In other words, this is something that was already in the calendar. There's no surprise here. Absolutely no surprise. So this is a standard business decision that was already calendared from the past, that we knew that this bill was coming due, and as normal, we would have to continue with servicing and maintaining basic maintenance of our infrastructure of governmental areas, roads, bridges, etc. So this actually was not a stimulus plan at all. You know, this is the concept of build back is like a big, huge grandstanding hype, because in reality, all it actually is acknowledging that, oh yeah, we knew before that these bills were coming due and they're kind of overdue, and we really need to take care of this. Now, granted, you did have a lot of people that got jobs, or actually you had a lot of people that basically got to continue working, continue their jobs. And you got items that had been basically canceled that should have been done. And you had a backlog. So this was addressing the backlog of standardized maintenance that was already there, that we knew many, many years back was going to come up, and that would have all this time to plan for it. Yet that's not what happened. So we only had about 30% of the money going out to expansion, which would be, well, because we're backlogged, we're going to hire extra people and get it done faster. So that's where a lot of that 30% went. So it was not really a stimulus program. It was a build back. It was a build back, again, is a label that basically means we're going to stop shirking our responsibilities on backlogged maintenance. So as many people in the country were waiting for the stimulus package, and there was just such little time for the stimulus package to get passed, it was a great disappointment to many Americans that could understand that there was this period of basically 3 weeks where Congress was majority Democratic, and they could have passed a measure to say, yes, we're going to approve a massive stimulus package, and then approve it, and then calendar it to hand up to the next stage, to the Senate, as transition was occurring. In other words, Congress could get it passed, and then we have the changeover of the new people who've been elected. Of course, at that point in time, the Democrats would have lost control of the House, but they gained control of the Senate, which means that the handoff of that other scheduled item arrives just in time for a Senate that is majority Democrat to go ahead and approve a super stimulus package. But for some reason, it just didn't click in people's heads. They seemed to be distracted for various reasons, and some of us could talk about how many of those odd reasons there were. You can also mention, things like what ended up happening. J6 came into play. But basically, we have these items, and it's a real tragedy because there was a point in time where many things could have happened very rapidly. Democrats could have got together and passed many bills rapidly and have them literally waiting for the Senate to grab a hold of them and refine them more and move them forward. But that didn't happen. So we end up with a lame duck Congress type situation and enormous amounts of damage. And much of the reality of looking at all our candidates, none of our modern candidates, except for me, I'm sorry I have to say it, except for me, understand that you need a Roosevelt era type item to move forward. So my decades of work to design plans dealt with the understanding of pre-Roosevelt, the beginning era of basically the understanding of what had to be done because the rest of the world was on the move one way or another, because certain countries were on the move to do things in many types of construction, even militarily. So, a lot of people think about, the horrible military machines, and that led to big war. And people fail to understand that we didn't start the big war. Other people started the big war. Germany invaded country after country after country. So even though Germany had these fantastic stimulus plans, creating all of these really nice concrete roads, many of them high speed, they ended up getting utilized for blitzkrieg. In other words, we have these nice high-speed roads to be able to very rapidly focus large amounts of military forces to one area or another, which basically meant one country or another. And of course, they continued to build certain roads and developments. Now, this would mean that in many ways, even though you wouldn't necessarily need as many pieces of military hardware, because you could quickly focus large amounts and get them there rapidly, as opposed to the previous normalized disbursement of military hardware, where you would build a bunch of stuff and then you deploy it in all these different ways. You could build less, but focus all of it, just for Pacific interest. So that basically was a big, huge factor when the brilliance of certain people, not just in economics, but in military, saw the buildups coming, saw that they're building all these companies and warehouses. Oh, by the way, if they decide to convert this manufacturing into munitions, we went through this exhaustive amount of work and brought out all this wonderful, extensive mathematics. By the way, almost 70% of that mathematics was done by women. A lot of people don't mention that. And so these numbers came up, and there it is. You had a ready-to-go formula where they were bringing this in, and they says, we already have to do things we're already starting to do and move a little bit. And then we had our other problems. We have the things with this all happened with the Great Depression and everything. And then you had Roosevelt. Roosevelt comes in. And basically you had a lot of economic people and military people just walk in and basically say, we need to have a serious, long discussion with you because of this. And so that's when it happened, and all those explanations were laid out. And Roosevelt was not a dummy, so he'd sit there and look at those tactical tables and go, Yeah, I see how that can work. You're right. You're right. We have to do something. So that's when major modifications and stimulus started being designed and happening. And that's part of the beginning. That was the beginning of the big, huge mega mechanism to move forward for what ended up becoming a mechanism that ended at the end of World War II and began sliding downhill. And yet a lot of people that thought, hey, everything's wonderful, businesses just seem to naturally traverse over. People just, wow, there's money all over the place. People invent businesses and new products, and it's just selling like crazy, and things are wonderful. But this was all a step down, step down. This is a series of stairs where the production rate would keep stepping down, stepping down. Even though people thought it was moving up, the actual curve of projection was not an efficient changeover. It did not translate out to what it should have been. But many people never see this. So when you're looking at these types of understanding, then you get to understand different types of opportunity for different ways to work with all of this. And of course, now today, to do this, you really need computers, or you need buildings and buildings full of women that are very smart with math, basically, or I'm sorry, guys too. Okay. And, basically, so a lot of what I was doing was to understand how this worked in larger block understanding, looking at the larger block understanding, and understanding the different gravity moves that were being made by, well, basically commanders and command systems. I mean, these guys were very sharp. They were say, okay, we're just going to engineer this completely new system, and it's going to be like 1.1 or 1.2 million parts they're going to have to go into this. But they're going to make this. In other words, you're inventing something that's a huge step forward. And people are like, but there's no guarantee this is going to work. And people are like, no, we're going to make this work. We can do this. We're going to make this work. It's just going to happen. It's just a matter of how much money you throw into the engineering before you achieve the goal. And this actually has a lot of truth to it. This is not to say that there weren't any failures, but for the most part, it's the truth. If you focus enough on any given area, even an area that's large and complex, and keep throwing money at it, you're going to significantly achieve various changes. So when looking at some of these different categories and structures and demographic structures, I decided to understand the basic understanding of what's referred to as the Roosevelt Plan, but I believe it started before that. It was pre-Roosevelt as well. And that's what I'm looking at. Again, I said that's what I'm looking at. But then I decided to say, okay, well, what else could we do? And this is where people go, oh, now you're thinking about an idealistic, super utopian society. And it's actually, no, that's actually really not it. It's just that we're doing changes where instead of gearing up to do enormous numbers of tanks and ships and all this other stuff, we're only looking at the necessarily balance. And let's not forget the necessary forward key research so that we can stay on the cutting edge, as well as recognize the goals we achieve from bang for the buck. Because sometimes you can build things that are really effective and they don't have to be that expensive. Not everything has to be a $30 million jet with a whole bunch of supportive logistics. It's amazing what you can get for $200,000 and then add a couple more $1 million for logistics and realize that the logistics will stay in place, but you just keep cranking out ka-chung, 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 the $200,000 units repeatedly, and you get a lot of bang for the buck, for what it is. This can work very well. So, so not abandoning that type of understanding. But main focus is we can do things moving technology forward by building lots of products that are interesting, that basically are longevous. In other words, they're going to be hanging out for a very long time. Longevous assets would be houses, cars, hand tools, socket wrenches, stuff like that. Things that are going to be around for 100 years, basically. And, not to say that some of the new cars aren't made out of a lot of plastic and some of that's going to need lots of servicing, but, notwithstanding that area, you have a lot of stuff that will be around, that is serviceable, where you can keep adding parts to it. You can change and have different levels of quality if you want to. So moving forward with this economic plan, interruption, had to do phones, continuing forward. So effectively adding new backtoes to the formula, looking at the basic, most people are going to call it the Roosevelt template, is what I utilized and say, okay, why did that work in many ways? And how do we make the next template work? So with the next template, obviously we are building more focused on assets, that are not going to get destroyed. We're not going to build a lot of tanks and ships that get destroyed, which means these very expensive assets, instead of being destroyed, we're going to make different types of various expensive assets. This means huge investment into things like new types of personalized robotics for every citizen. This means new types of upgrades to various systems. This means things like perhaps, maybe, if we're lucky, we can put a lot of money into new types of electric cars and significantly drop the cost, making them more affordable for every citizen, and continue some sort of trend in that area. Perhaps, maybe. Everything does not always translate out like electronics. I mean, people may have noticed that TV sets used to be many thousands of dollars, and now you can walk into a store with $500 and get a TV set that's so large, basically, that you can't get it into your car. So you end up with an extensive type of arrays of all kinds of things that you can do, because you just keep adding on and adding on it. If you were a gamer, you would know, you'd be tracking 5x5 with what I'm talking about, and upgrading your world, basically, with all of these different types of things. And you have a unique backtoe. You have I equated ways that would understand some of the former promises that legally were made to citizens that did not get honored. And these would be things like, we had these great land purchases, Louisiana, Alaska, it goes on, where basically people were promised a cut. They were promised stock, they were promised residuals, didn't happen. And if you look at other countries, like some of these countries in the Mideast, they have a sharing plan where you have people in the population. You could look at Kuwait and how Kuwait worked for many, many years, and you had people getting $60,000. The average adult or head of household was getting $60,000 a year. When I did my research equating the differences between Kuwait versus the United States, I believe that was in the mid-90s. I was working on that. I came up with statistics that indicated $93,000, basically, in types of assets that would be making citizens direct shareholders. This would be doing, yes, what our forefathers originally did for a number of years, which is basically state-sponsored capitalism. And it's at a different scale. And, of course, when our forefathers did it, we were still in the period of the 60-year war situation. And we had about a 40-year run that was really good. And, basically, in many ways, we shook the world from going from a remote area that was barely discovered, that people did understand there was a lot of land there, but no population, no industry, to in 40 years becoming a mega emerging empire potential, where everyone went, wow, and we took over lots of international shipping lucrative options, basically. People were like, wow, it's coming from America. Everyone wanted to go to America, basically. So, yes, that kind of caused a situation that the British were paranoid. Yes, they were. They were paranoid. They decided to tax anything on the Atlantic Ocean and say everybody has to pay a tax to Britain. That was obviously a problem with many people. They ordered ships to take different routes. That was logistically insane. And then they started pinching or kidnapping sailors to try to basically stop this rapid growth in America of import-export stuff, while also covering its shortage problem for its own military needs. Now, the thing that is different about this one is basically the idea is to invite other countries. And I believe that we have an excellent set of communications with many nations for quite a number of years where we can say, look, we want to do this particular deal modified like this. And in some ways we kind of want to do it again, only not with any Great War thing. Let's do this, but no Great War. So I think that we would have countries like Britain, countries like Canada, many other countries would say, yeah, let's do this. Yeah, let's do this. So this is part of the idea. It's open. It's open. You know, I'm not going to hold a gun to someone's head and say, here, sign here and participate in the treaty. You know, I mean, it's an open option, but, you know, but still, we can do this, and we can be fair about understanding displacement factors of technology way ahead of time. I figured that out with stuff with math, you know, so knowing people's jobs were going to be displaced 10, 15, 20 years ahead of time, knowing that 80 million jobs were going to be lost in the next 25 to 30 years for AI or automation, so forth, etc., was a gold mine, because that means I knew it in advance. I figured out a way to equate it and know it in advance. So it was easy to figure out that in many cases a 3-week to 6-week upgrade was all that was necessary to basically seamlessly focus these people ahead of time to a new option, where in fact they could be actually getting a raise. So all these different things, this is what mass economic modeling software would do. This is why I've always been, from 2005 to 2008, booking really hard, but almost nobody seemed to notice the need for mass economic software development. Of course, now we have countries that may be spending $140–50 billion in, like, say, China. More, we're talking about many big bucks. But yeah, basically this system works by restoring max production. So in this case, we end up with basically very rapidly a negative 33% unemployment rating, because people will have a job and a third, so to speak, available to them. And many people will do this. They'll say, oh, this is a boom, a big boom, really good pay, really good options. Yeah, let's do this. So a lot of people will want to do that for a while, and then they're going to want to say, okay, I want some more vacation time. I want to ease back, and we can do this because flexibility is part of the understanding. To understand, yes, you worked like crazy for 6 to 9 months, and now you want to rest back. You want to spend more time with the family. Yes, let's do this. This is a good thing. But we can do this because we go into max production, which means that we have hedged our bet against any possible debts, and we have created extra hard assets. This puts us in a very solid situation. I'm eliminating all discrimination respective to loan. No such thing as loan discrimination. Basically, credit rating, as you would know it, is basically completely gone. It's gone. It's pointless. It doesn't matter. And the true origin of a lot of money for banking actually comes from the Fed, wholesale, which is based on your labor. So making hard assets, moving hard assets again, and guaranteeing hard assets with the guaranteed home loan new construction option for people to give themselves employment and be able to achieve both cash and assets. So you're making a job and getting assets. That equates out to what the government normally would do in these new situations, which is basically make 30% differential factor, which comes out to an average of no less than $90,000, because people are going to be building at least on average statistically a $300,000 home. So this is like very, very important. And, this is part of the recovery system. I estimate that in 3 to 3.5 years, we could basically pay off the entire national debt from this one program area alone. Now, the high performance kick-in on all of this is very extensive to explain the intricacies of this. By the way, this is another reason why the archive is so essentially important for national security and the designs, and why you cannot allow these things to be stolen. And as they are now moving out of the country, these insane, the legalism of it. Anyhow, so we have a respective understanding in BACTO where we have new systems of equating that actually say, wait a minute, the government made a lot of money. They paid how much money for Louisiana land purchase? And we've been cheated. Okay, that's reality. That happened. Okay, 9 out of 10 people did get cheated. 1 in 10, not so much. So restoring max productivity and looking at the old books comes up with a set of equative understanding that we need to redistribute land wisely, which originally was laid out by some of our forefathers to last to the year 2500, 2500. Unfortunately, something went drastically wrong, corruption. Let's not exactly go there right now. What we're going to go with is the future plan and how we basically restore land. We restore land to people. And a lot of this is going to have to deal with the reality that you need to restore land to people because they're going to need like a half an acre, 2.5 acres, maybe 5 acres. People are going to need land, and we need to facilitate that, and it has to be good land. It has to be green land. And this means we have to be stewards. I've laid a bunch of stuff in the site, other stuff before about being good stewards, and how there's a massive, intricate plan on how we're going to overhaul dealing with wildlife, using a lot of remote drone stuff. And many people are understanding this. Firefighters understand the uses of drones and all this stuff. So this is also going to curtail mass water projects. We have to do this. Effectively, every pipe company that we have in this country will be looking at 100% full-time employment plus. So jobs, yeah, it's a good thing. This is going to be working water high speed. And I address heavily the entire understanding of people that are drowning from flooding, basically, Mississippi, Arkansas, etc., all these areas, and say, look, all we have to do is realize that, okay, yes, it's expensive, but we can harvest this water. We can sell this water because other people need this water. Other people want to buy this water. We can work water banking, purchase agreement, mass plans, back them federally. This means that we can manage vast sums of water into recognitionable assets as though they are a hard asset or a liquid, like they're bars of gold. This water's going to be there in the future, and it's going to be worth something. So we can equate this. It's a real, tangible, legitimate asset. So this means that we can do things. We can take the entire center area of the country, going straight on up into Canada. Hopefully we can deal with Canada too. Massively refoliate areas, massively re-engineer areas, and bring water where it's needed. And the beauty of this, part of the beauty of this is we have incredible hindsight to look at former projects and say, look, we did these things, we actually did them really fast, we needed the power, World War II was coming on, but guess what we did? We screwed up the salmon, a $4 billion a year industry pre-World War II, just going into World War II, which would be basically a $40 billion a year industry if it still existed. That's $400 billion in 10 years. That justifies a whole lot of new types of engineering, and we have the most fantastic minds to draw upon using AI, new types of AI engineering, coming up with very creative ways to set up various forms of lifting systems. various forms of very creative escalators and whatnot mechanisms to accommodate the salmon. So there's a lot of ways we can move this further. We can restore all of these areas back to. I'm convinced that we can go beyond just going back to what they were. We can re-engineer these things high performance and be super stewards and turn them into ultra high performance items while balancing a really good stewardship with wildlife. So my opinion on wildlife is a bit different. I don't believe that abandoning wildlife to starve to death and to shrivel up with no water, die of thirst, I think that's cruel. I think that's bad stewardship. But some people think that, you just leave the area totally alone and just let it happen naturally. I don't believe that. I'm sorry. Actually, I don't believe I even need to say I'm sorry about that. That doesn't work. We have to accept good stewardship, and we have to accept coming up with brand new plans where we can become harmonious with animals. And that's going to be a lot of work. And there are many people that have done a lot of work in those areas. And we can do this. Again, we can do this. So a lot of items dealing with that. I'd like to show some of the drones and the basically the area chameleon drones, the camouflage style drones, the ultra quiet drones, the acoustical projection drones for basically the animals basically can hear good noises, bad noises. You can either push, drive, or attract. So there's different ways you can do with this. And this will work good with fire as a warning system to move animals out of the way. It can work harmoniously with firefighters, especially with AI and having specialized autonomous items. We can deal with special long life power cell technology that's actually mind-boggling, that's getting ready to come out, or old things that are on the shelf that have been well classified. I know a little bit about that. Yeah, we can make things that are incredible that way. So as we talk about the new economy, essentially working with everything from a hard asset value point gives us the initial understanding of we're looking at everything at a for-profit first, so that we can balance out and understand all the rest of the other cost needs and justifications. So to say now we can equate all the areas for what might be necessary for health coverage, so forth, etc., in these various areas. So, call interruption, sorry. Okay, moving forward. Now, basically hooking people together with some of the stuff that I was working before with, which is basically helping people rapidly make their own medical co-ops, basically. These work really, really well, and you can work them even part-time. You can incorporate other types of people. There's a lot of ways to do this and dramatically take over buying and owning healthcare yourself. This addresses some of the ongoing problems that we've been having with hospitalization problems, the lack of care, the ownership problems with the tremendous greed. So this basically helps us become our own partners and put more money into our pocket. We're talking about the possibility that we could actually have a 50% harvest back toe effectively between the asset participation acquisition as well as a little bit of cashback investment factors coming back to ourselves. And this works even if you're on just Medicare, Medi-Cal. So basically, these are very important plans. Now, the thing is very few people again know about this. Some people ran into what I was talking about. Other people didn't run into what I was talking about. Some people may have noticed that when Obama was president, that he talked about that it was okay if people grouped together and made their own plans, companies, so forth, etc., that would be included in an okay with Medi-Cal. So, yeah, that was only getting partially near what I was already designing and doing way more than a decade before. So and these mechanisms that we can do, that the unfolding of these, the placement of these, and the scale and size of these, are very doable. These are very well balanced for-profit type situations. But what we're doing is we're eliminating the mega greed factors. A lot of the factors deal with better real estate usages, better construction purposes, and various resources, and get away from the ultra high dollar real estate, and get away from some of the ultra high dollar unnecessary super concrete bunker design. You don't have to necessarily have that. This is a big help. And we're also talking about the working with the understanding of the medical curve and your teeter-totter, understanding your basically graduated payment loan situation when you have a completely different marketing understanding, and the fact that you are both the customers and the owners. Without you as customers, obviously the owners couldn't make money, but you're both. So this brings on an entirely new option in the medical industry. It does not work for the entire medical industry. Let me say this again for people that are slow. It does not work for the entire medical industry. Okay, there's 70% possible that it may work at. Okay, but we're talking about significance. We're talking about major upgrade in healthcare at this starting area, and it is just very solid. It's rock solid. It will work fine, and there's a lot of different ways to do it, and there's and how it's going to be distributed and mapped out. Extremely solid. So we have a unique opportunity here because I did a lot of extended research on how buying, selling, forward purchases, advanced purchases on different types of technology areas and wholesale buying on this that are tremendously helpful and deep understanding to be able to do things at incredibly different levels. But again, it does not work for the whole system. It only works for certain portions of the system. So, you have to give me a break on this because the later phases would require a lot more work, and that was going to be a lot more chips to install and a lot more AI stuff. And there were different cogs that I hadn't finished with. Those notes are quite incredible, and those are extreme engineering, and those a lot of work there. Highly valuable understanding on how those lay out and scale. So if we step back to understand some of the other added nuances into the new home construction stuff, basically, we also can add on extra square footage. In other words, what we're going to want is a lot of people that are going to upgrade, maybe upgrade what they already have, or integrate into an upgrade situation of a more extended option. These deal with things like guys and girls stuff. The girls are going to want one set of stuff. The guys obviously are going to say, yes, I probably want a lathe, a mill, a drill press, and laser cutter, and all this other neat stuff, whatever you want. Now, the thing is when you work with these at different scales and you're going to do large wholesale acquisitions where you're going to do a mega scale acquisition, you just accept this. So this is how we're going to get the volume buying down to getting a hold of creative purchases. And this means there's also different technology grade levels, different countries. Some people might want to buy British, Canadian, American, German, whatever. Some people might say, hey, I don't care if my drill press is built by the Chinese. I'm okay with that. All there's other options for doing this on mass acquisitions. Build this into a vastly upscaled understanding of building this into your new home / building business project. So, and this works excellent for remote. And basically, we're talking about using the graduated payment loan system again. And we're looking at the bonus side of longevous assets, obviously being of great value. Now, for the girls' side of it, I've mentioned some guys. Obviously, there's a whole lot of things that girls are into. Girls like neat things too, and I'll just let you talk to the girls more. They'll tell you what they want, and a lot of these things actually are longevous. There's a lot of investment to them that makes sense. Now, also into the homes, we're talking complete homes. We're talking having different types of appliances built into the scheme of the products. We're talking about computer systems, hub systems, miniature and regular server systems. We're talking about it's incorporated to understand a minimum of 5 computers per citizen. So the average household that might have, and in some areas might be man, wife, 3 kids, and they got a business interest and maybe 2 business interests. Mommy works and daddy works. They each have a business, and the kids are going to want businesses too. So you're talking about 30 capacity of a minimum of 35 computers that have to be handled. So you're going to have a mini hub, mini setup system. You're going to have a mini crunching system built into the longeviousness of these overall projects. This works into an efficiency design system involving heating control, cooling control, for a far more efficient system. All this also incorporates, solar right into the projects. It can also incorporate different levels of solar. We can also have autonomous different types of battery systems into this. We're talking going really, really deluxe or having a scaled understanding for what you feel you want. So if you want to do a different style of system, maybe you say, yeah, I want some extra batteries, but I'd rather do some industrial batteries that I can service myself for the shop out back. And I'd rather do that. You're not married to any one concept, but this is a wide open door right here. This is a wide open door. And there's a lot to be said for people who've already basically figured things out, resolved things basically. So all of these are items that deal with super economic buildup very, very rapidly. My initial research indicated 24.8%, I believe it was, of people who would actually do it. So that's 75 million base construction projects that could come underway the first year. That'd be the largest single added new construction commitment in the history of this nation. And it would be about the most wonderful thing that you could possibly imagine, because it's all based on hard asset generation, brand new hard asset generation, which of course the government has to equate and do its normal thing that it's been doing ever since our forefathers many, many, many years back, where it's going to look at that 30% differential factor between wholesale and retail and print some of that money up. So this also dramatically can change the tax situation, as I've said earlier, because if you're talking about the tax situation and we're focusing on getting rid of the national debt, I've already done this, already equated this out to completely get rid of the national debt. We've got ways to look at this and say, well, maybe as a collective we can say, well, the government's printing money based on my labor. When do I get a cut? When do I get a cut of this? And there's something to be said that this is different. That none of this is a welfare. Keep in mind, none of this is a welfare thing. This is about people who work hard that deserve to get their cut. I'm very big on that. People deserving to get their cut. So as we deal with getting things balanced out with the national debt, obviously I think there's a lot of people, as I start unfolding it, they might want to have meetings and some serious discussions about it. Tables open on that. Eventually what we'll have, let's say we pay off the national debt in 3.5 years. I'm not joking here. This is not a joke. It's mass mathematics, but this is not a joke here. So then we're talking about how much money does the government actually need, because we're printing over what the government would need at that point. So do you get some of this money back? And my answer would have to be, that would be yes, the proper way to do things. So that's a stimulus package where you're going to spend the money. And as you spend the money, you're going to pay taxes. More localization taxes would get collected. And we're talking about being able to finally sit down at a table and rethink the thing about taxes. Now, with my scenario, it also has a super AI identification plan that deals with the Roosevelt problem situation, where you have the mass tax category of certain styles of rich people. And that was done because they basically busted people red-handed doing telegraph strategies to basically crash the economy. That would be mass and economic sabotage. That was technically the death penalty, and it still is. And since they did not have enough logistical power to process everything, what they decided to do is make bulk category and say, this is it. Boom, these are the people that did it. Boom, because we know these other people didn't do it because they don't have any resources. It's these people, boom. So they hit them with high taxes. Now, with the system super AIs putting in place, mine has the ability to trace back and basically recover and understand most of that 50% of people who were not guilty. They were not guilty. They did not participate, but they've been forced to pay part of that bill. So with the new advanced system I have, we're going to be able to start letting those people off the hook. Off the hook. So that'll also equate out into the largest tax cut in the history of the nation, working with an understanding of the guilty versus the not guilty. Please keep in mind that they did this, and the people they were doing this on, they did something called mass economic sabotage. That's the death penalty by the Constitution. So please don't talk too much S and H about it, because it's a very serious crime, and I don't want to hear other people's BS. I won't be tolerating it. I won't have the mood for it. So, and moving forward, the mass AI system is also a mass legal upgrade system. It also understands the mass problem psychologically and the lackings of human beings, basically because of many things, such as their parents were exposed to chemicals throughout our industrialization of the last 100 years, and they have genetic damage. Okay, so, these people can't be necessarily held accountable and say it's your fault, you're to blame. No, some of these people have genetic damage, and these systems have a way to understand this, and this does make quite a bit of work for people who are psychologists and psychiatrists to work with studying this, and other types of human resource managers to be able to work forward with various solutions. And again, AI is a partnered item right into that. The AI law stuff works great. It becomes the ultimate assistive tooling for Justice Department assistance. It becomes the ultimate in-the-field device, not only for the citizen, right there in your cell phone, but it becomes an ultimate item for anybody in government, not just like police officers, anybody in government, to deal with any possible problem and document preparation. This can be, at first it seems confusing. It seems like you're making more documents, but the more you understand the system and the more you work with it, it becomes very efficient. And you're talking about a lot of manual labor for paperwork generation is getting eliminated, because there's a lot of anticipated information that's pre-filled. This type of technology works great with my SAR technology plan. Instead of spending $1 billion on a wall, let's spend $1 billion on SAR and AI. This is going to get us a significant upgrade in the pivoting control over awareness of what's happening. This means more safety for border officers. This also means document simplifications, automatic documents. We're talking automatic estimations of what people are at, where people are at, where they're going to be coming in at. And basically, part of the documents are pre-done. It's going to say, we know X number of these people are believed to be children because of their height. Now, that could be wrong, granted, but it's going to be fairly accurate. It'll blow your mind how accurate it'll actually be. And they can tell the difference between girls and boys. Guys and girls, it can do that, and they can also tell whether or not people have firearms. And there are some other things that people have come out that are brilliant about. I believe it's a bit different than some of my quantum aperture technology, which would respectively get you the chemical analyst understanding differences on fentanyl. Yeah, there's ways to track a lot of this. So now, into this systems, you're talking about things that are already happening. People have already seen AI happening, integrating. Let me just stand up and look you straight in the eye and tell you, you don't have a clue what I did and what we can actually do. It's mind-boggling. And I want you to be assured of this. I want you to believe this, because I'm going to do this. We're going to do this. There's a lot of people that will be very handy. I'm going to be utilizing 5 of the largest companies in the world immediately on these projects. And it's worth every dime. I don't want to hear anybody complain that there's going to be a lot of money forced up onto the extra chips and all the extra stuff. It's going to pay out. It's going to work. This is going to work, So as we continue here, the economic items are, I barely scratched the surface on this stuff. I barely scratched the surface. And again, I'm sure you've looked at some of the material where I talk about the dereliction of duty, 4 people that have really done a bad job. There's 200 people. I'm looking at 14 judges to be convicted, total at the end of this. They bad players. They violated national security. They violated archive law. Archive law in areas that require the death penalty. This is not a game. So, and the AI law stuff just has looked at this stuff. I've just ripped it apart with the AI law stuff and then manually gone through and sorted it. And there's no escape for these people. There's no escape. You know, Julie Su, there's no escape for what she did. You know, Shirley Weber, no escape. You know, California AG's office, no escape. I don't possibly see how Harris can escape either for what she's done in the past, because she's related to attacks and loss of 4 major archive mobile vehicles. So, I mean, basically AI says she's a criminal. She's going to be going to jail. There's no way around that. You know, and, you know, simply you cannot attack another candidate. Harris cannot use her office and mechanism and deny me services when I need to prosecute officers that were harassing a candidate. And then in turn, she takes money from Donald Trump and forwards her career, taking $6,000. Gee, that would have put me on the ballot, right? Wow, boom. Okay, and then basically participate with other people in other types of blacklisting, electronic blacklisting that hurts people's reputation unfairly, illegally, a series of felonies. You can't transmit on a government system, that's a felony. You can't transmit across state lines, that's a felony, an additional felony separate. And you can't do it to a candidate, that's an array of crimes. And when you keep doing it repeatedly and you keep ignoring the fact that someone says, look, here's the evidence, stop, cease and desist, and I'm demanding you prosecute these people. And, you know, this has not worked out very good because these people are in dereliction. They didn't want to do their job. They're screwed. Harris is gone. I'm going to put her in prison for what she did because she has personally participated in attacks against me and then wants to step up on my neck and destroy an incredible archive committing archive violations because she's a participant connected to it. It's death penalty area. You know, let me get this straight here. So some of you people just, you don't get it yet. You didn't have the information. Oh, it was withheld from you. Oh, you were lied to. Well, I'm not going to say sorry to you. If you were paying more attention to some of the stuff that was out there, you'd understand that these people rigged an election. You know, I'd say it's slower for some of you to say you have to understand this, that an election was rigged. The gubernatorial election in California, the special election was rigged. And the computer analysis repeatedly looked at comes out at a series of averages. Worst case scenario, 22%. Best case scenario ended up 45, basically. I'd had 45% of the vote, which would have been, by the way, the largest amount of vote in the section applying to the gubernatorial. But of course, also, my research indicated the 58 to 60% for no recall. But see, it's important for people to understand, as I would have had these mobile broadcast RV vehicles on the road, people would have saw my name. This means over 10 million California voters would have knew who I was. They would have saw my name on the ballot. They would have gone to the websites, the over 200 websites. They would have been able to read some of the most advanced and brilliant information, again, pertaining to new AI development. Things that were mind-boggling, groundbreaking. Things that would have been doing things to improve their life and economy enormously. Things that would have been repairing people's civil rights, a 24/7 system of everybody gets an intelligent AI access to assist them. This is dramatic. This is reducing 70% of the paperwork for attorneys to be able to process this material. Dramatic information. Now we're on the way. I think we can get that up to 90+% on the efficiency rating. So, you know, this equates out with the computers repeatedly looking at the demographics of my package programs and the sampling from the citizens of whether they like this program or that program. You know, so when we're looking at putting this stuff, we put this stuff in the largest computers in the world, and we run through these different types of tendencies. You know, basically, I would have been stepping up, probably recognizable because of the number of what? Mobile broadcast RV units. I would have immediately been looked upon as probably having, according to the computers, 15% of the vote. And very rapidly, as people would have become aware of what the extensive plan that I have and how solid it is, how reinforced it is, how extensively, exhaustively, mathematically looked over in conjunction with AI, and how good the system is, and how the interaction of the 24/7 service would have had people understanding what would have been happening to their lives, their future. What an upgrade, huge upgrade, that I quickly would have obtained another 25% onto that, which would have had me looking at 40% nationwide. So the right thing that would have happened is I would be the #1 presidential Democratic candidate. So I'd say that again slowly, but I'm sure you heard me the first time. So it wouldn't be Harris. It would be me. And because she was involved in attacking me, that's attack on a candidate. That disqualifies her from the process of election. And there's much more there. She's a criminal. She's going to be going to prison. And I'm sick and tired of hearing people whining. Stop whining. It's too bad. Welcome to reality. People make stupid mistakes and people break the law. And sometimes they get caught. You know, and this business, oh, you're going to put your foot down and say, well, we just don't feel that way. We want to do something else. No, it doesn't work that way. I've already filed the paperwork. It's already ready to unleash up in Congress. There's no way that I'm seizing the delegates and complaint. Now, this is the way it's going down. I've laid out the advanced demographics and how the computers look at this, okay? These are my votes. These are my votes, okay? These are not somebody else's votes. These are my votes. I want my votes. And here's the thing. Every voter has the right to have their lives upgraded. They have the right not to be robbed by rigged elections. Plain and simple. Plain and simple constitutional rights. I don't even want to tell you how many lawsuits are connected to that and how that works out. So there's part of the upgrade talking about the economics. And I'm stuck. I hate this legal end stuff that I'm stuck with. I've got to go out and prosecute all these people for basically committing treason. This is just despicable, this situation. We have to get these people behind bars as fast as possible. And locally, from my end, looking at what happened over here in California, repeatedly, these people have to go to prison. They have to be punished. Julie Sue, Kamala Harris, Shirley Weber, current AG's office. There's a lot of other logistics people. These people are in gross dereliction of duty. It's mind-boggling. And they've rigged elections, and they're going to prison. And that's all there is to it. And my position's undefeatable, you see, because I'm a willing witness to utilize an AI, right? Yes, actually to use an fMRI lie detector technology. I would arrange all the correct questions and arrange the correct questions for the opponents. And I'm going to tell you right now, these people would not want to answer the bank of questions that AI is going to basically put them through. They're facing major archive charges. This is death penalty area stuff. This is not a game. So I need you Democrats to immediately, as you hear this, to understand, you need to call some of your friends on the phone and say, hey, we got a major problem. Because this guy has already seized the delegates out of California, and he's doing it for 7 other states. I took it down to below 200. I'm filing documents for the rest. It's impossible for Harris to win. She can't get past me in Congress. It's not possible. It's impossible for Harris to win. And you need to accept that as rapidly as possible so we can get this election back on track. And these people that have been participating in blacklisting of candidates, attacks on candidates, rigging election, we have to take care of all this too. So there's the truth, plain and simple. Rock solid. Rock solid. There it is. My name's Michael Crosby. I'm running for POTUS 2024. Thank you.